like, I'm like, what are the rest of the letters? Because gonna need to know that to write them down.
This year is based on.
You meaning my mom?
You're counting? Your fingers too? Toes?
No, it's Pictionary. No, charades. He's counting. No, he's counting. No, riding a bicycle. Wait. That'd be fun. What's that now? It's true. Want to go ahead and get announcements going? We're at that time. Attention, class. That's right. Pinky to the moon.
Disrupt the rest of the church. You keep doing that.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, Ultimate Men's Group Triathlon, May 31st and June 1st.
Hey, Tori.
Hi. Hello. That includes. What are you doing?
Just making it weird.
It's a gift.
Dinner and bowling Friday evening starting at 5:45. Breakfast Saturday at 8 a.m. in the fellowship hall, followed by disc golf and K1 go-karts. Lunch is provided on Saturday. Registration is $100 for all events and food. There are options for Friday night only or Saturday only. Register at go.newlifehillsboro.com. Deadline for registration is today. Do you need anything?
Oh, we're just going to do a curriculum check.
Grad recognition Sunday is, that's today. So if you brought your cards, you can put it downstairs in the reception, or during the reception in their honor. So if you see any of them, congratulate them. Their names are in the bulletin. I'm not going to go. Summer Bible Club starts June 24th through the 28th, 6:30 to 8:30. So invite kids in the neighborhood, ages 3 to 6th grade. You can sign up or volunteer at go.newlifehillsboro.com. Invitations are available at the information desk. They're the ones that Tori gave us last week. So just grab more of those if you need them. Family meeting is
Hi, Kara.
June 2nd at 5 p.m. So quarterly business meeting, family style. Fried chicken will be provided. Bring a side or a dessert to share. Child care for kids up to 4 years old will be provided. Memorial Day is May 27th. Church offices are closed. Promotion Sunday, June 2nd, where kids are promoted to their new classes. And Shepherd Training Wednesday, June 5th at 6 p.m. in the Northeast Conference Room. There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you, dear.
Quick thing.
Curtsy?
So since this is the last week
Ever?
Mark.
Jesus come back? Oh, if Mark.
He needs to come back.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm ready, brother. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
You do quick source and leader guide?
When you say you do, what does that mean?
I mean,
Do I use it?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Mostly the quick source, not as much, but some.
Okay. And then electronic guides versus printed guides. How many for printed?
The books?
Every curriculum that we go through, there's a printed copy that you can have as a follower of the teaching that talks about what we're going to do, so you can read ahead of time, all that. Not everybody uses them, but for those that do want to use them, would you prefer print?
Okay, 3. Gotcha. And then electronic?
That's me.
I'm doing it for me now, not for John. This is my vote. I don't know what John's vote.
Okay, and I'm seeing a whole lot more people in class than 7.
But also, I've counted. I take attendance every week. Do you get that?
No, I have new curriculum. I'm going to bring in.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I'm looking for.
I'm
electronic.
I need help sometimes, so you're gonna have to just go with me on that.
Electronic again?
We all do, Ron.
Will that be by
Thank
email?
goodness.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I said lose that, so I can't log
Remember,
What's that?
electronic.
Oh, sorry. I was
Anybody got time for that?
So,
Okay, hands up one last time.
sorry.
But for electronic.
Electronic.
I don't want mine electronic. I like having the paper because
Okay, 2. Don't! I can't count when you go like this.
My Bible was falling out of my lap. How many
Okay.
shoulders?
Okay, 2,
Thanks, Tori.
You're welcome.
Looking good.
We're disrupting the class.
How many people voted? You don't know what I'm talking about. How can you raise your hand? How many people voted on the Facebook page for today's lesson?
You and me, Jessica.
Did you vote?
I at least
thought I
mentally did. I
did.
can't remember if I actually did.
I know, I'm like, did I?
Mm-mm.
I did.
I thought I did.
Who voted?
I didn't.
Who voted? Jessica voted.
I don't know if I
Jackie gets a pass because she's not in the Facebook group.
Here's
You want one?
the thing, I was going to vote, but, you know, she chose me anyway, so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's true.
going.
You voted. I looked this morning, and this is the only. What? You didn't vote.
I voted for my book to keep my.
What?
The question to do.
It's a choose your own adventure. Okay. Don't worry. For those of you, what? Well, then I guess you're going to have to participate. I don't give out free trophies just because you showed up. That doesn't work that way. That's a generation thing that I don't connect with. Okay, we are in Mark 15 and 16, and I'm going to sidestep what I almost always do. And this time I'm going to actually follow the teacher guide. Ha! Crazy. We're going to go the end of 15 to the beginning of 16 because we've already been through Resurrection Sunday, back in Easter, if everybody remembers that. But for whatever reason, the student teacher guide thing has us go back through it again. I'm not sure. Whatever. There's good information to cover on it regardless. So if the timing of these feels a little herky-jerky, that's why. So Mark 15 through 16, starting at verse 42 is where we're going to pick up in 15. And in typical fashion, I'll have somebody read, and then we'll kind of break it down as we go. And I've got an object lesson. Not doing anything weird with all this. There's a purpose to it. So don't freak out because I brought an axe to church, you know, or a hatchet. Everybody bring your hatchet. What's that?
You're supposed to bury your hatchet.
Yeah, I'll bury my hatchet right in your back, you know. Oh, that was rowdy. Sorry. Hey, like I said, it's a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. I'll be real with you. Anybody know, this is going to be anybody know why? I have 3 questions about this. Mary Magdalene, why does she get called out with a last name in the Bible? Why does she get nobody else gets a last name? I see Carl, you're ready. Go ahead. No?
My guess is just because there's so many Marys in the Bible.
What about the other Marys? How come Mary Magdalene is so special that she gets a call out with a last name?
Well, there's Mary Magdalene, there's Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Jesus. There's Mary,
There's another Mary that we talked
mother
about
of
last week.
James and John,
Yeah.
the sons of thunder. That's so cool, man. How would you like to have that name? I hope Jesus calls me something cool like that. I don't know what it'll be. Why does she get the call out? Okay, trick question. It's not her last name.
Just have to say I thought it was the last name.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go. You got it. You get one. It's not her last name. It's where she's.
It's originated in England.
Mm-hmm. We don't have last names at this time. We didn't really use that. If anything, it was like if you were John's son, that was kind of where the Johnson like family name would come from, that kind of thing, right? That's why there's so many names that end in last names that end with S-O-N on it, you know. So, trick question. Magdalene is not her last name, it's where she's from. She's from Magdala. If you are from Magdala, you are a Magdalene. If you are from Galilee, you are a Galilean, or Galilean, depending on how you like to pronounce it. Mary Magdalene, one of the greatest characters in the Bible, in my opinion, from the perspective of how and how God views the value of women. Men and women are different, clearly, and value in each, right? Each different, each purposefully and useful in its own right and in perfect intention, the way God intended it. So, we're going to talk today a little bit about women's rights in the Bible, or kind of lack thereof. Now, you may agree with it, you may disagree with it, and I don't really care either way because this is history of it, not whether you like it, right? Like, everybody has their personal preference on certain things. Maybe you think everybody, you know, gals should be the stay-at-home wife thing. Maybe they should go out in the corporate world. I don't really care on that. That's not the point of the conversation. The point of the conversation is to understand women's rights. We're going to touch on that real quick. But before we do, I got some dad jokes for you. Yeah, dun, dun, dun. You don't have to make it, like, weird.
It's over? Okay.
No.
Seriously?
Oh, no. Ooh, she went there.
You'll just have to say it again.
I'll have to bring them back out. Oh, and hi to everybody on Facebook who might be logging in, and Derek in the booth. Thank you again, as always, for jumping in and helping out. If you're tired of bending over to reach your drink, it's time to raise the bar. Hey, I'm up here working for you. I went to the library the other day and I was like, do you have any books on paranoia? And the librarian was like, they're right behind you. You like that? I was playing catch with Ryan the other day. We were throwing the baseball around, and the baseball kept getting larger, and then it hit me. Think, oh, I should have caught it.
You need to tell a couple of our players on our team that one.
Oh, yeah? They didn't catch it? Took a few to the bean. What's orange and sounds like a parrot?
What's that?
What's orange and sounds like a parrot?
Orange parrot.
A carrot. Bullseye. No? Raise the bar? All right. Fun facts with Teacher Rob. This one, I have a theme. It's about work. Ooh, work. Fun facts. Anybody guess what the most common day to call in sick is? Most common day to call in sick. Who said Monday? Monday. Okay, see, you're going to get one. Am I going to pick it for you? Am I going to let you pick? All right, here you go, Jeff. You get one. You're just going to just randomize it, right? Love that. Yeah, Monday. Only in the U.S. Any guess what the most common day to call in sick is outside of the U.S.?
Friday.
Haven't heard it yet.
Thursday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Random guessing gets candy. Somebody's got to get it right.
Why Tuesday?
Oh, you're trying to double? Why Tuesday? I don't know.
Because they probably went
It's most common, though. I don't know. Maybe they work.
A lot of places do a Sunday, Monday holiday, especially
right.
tourism industries.
Hmm.
So their weekend is shifted, so they're extended as a Tuesday.
Technically Monday.
Yeah, it's their Monday.
Least common day to call in sick. Worldwide.
Wednesday,
Least common day.
Sunday.
Thursday?
Friday.
Friday. I was like, there's only 7. Just go through them. Yeah, Friday.
Call in on a Friday.
What's that?
Why would you not call in on a Friday?
You don't-
Again, I didn't ask. I just facts.
I'd rather have Fridays off than Mondays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Least common day to call in sick, believe it or not. Anybody guess who was the first person to write what we now call a formal resume, like a work resume? Anybody guess?
Jefferson.
Nope. Earlier than that.
Aristotle.
You're in the ballpark. Leonardo da Vinci, known as the first person to actually write a resume. Isn't that interesting? Any guess on how many people McDonald's worldwide employs? How many employees McDonald's has worldwide? Corporate right down to the fry cooks.
Yeah.
14.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5. Really?
No, it's less than that. It's less than 50 million. It's less than million. Less than million. But it's close. 761,000. You're close. 761,000. Why what?
Everybody's just been asking why after all these things. So
Yeah, it's why. I don't know. It's facts. 12% of the U.S. population has worked for McDonald's. 1 in 8. 12.5%. Anybody guess what the most common job is in America? The most common job?
Cleaning house.
Yeah, think of it, no, that's not house cleaning. But yeah, think of like a category. What's the broadest category that employs most people? Retail what? Sales. Retail sales. Bullseye. You want to pick or you want me to throw one at you? You just going to take it? It's like, I don't even know, just throw it at me, see what happens.
got bigger.
Yeah, it did. Then it hit me. Yeah, retail sales most common job in the U.S. Okay, so we voted on, 2 of you voted on, of the 3 following Choose Your Own Adventures. One was Jesus' Good Friday death to Easter Sunday resurrection is inaccurate as a timeline. That was number 1 that we could follow. We're going to talk about that regardless, but I'm only going to go briefly on it. Resurrection or recitation, which came first? And the last one was apparently women are only good for starting rumors, but Jesus trusts them. Okay, so fair comment. That was talking about cultural women's rights. If anybody here doesn't know me, Jackie, let me go ahead and explain to you, I have every respect for women and women's rights in society and in culture. The 60% owner of the business I own happens to be my wife. Clearly, I have value in women in whatever role or fashion that may come to be, in the work world or in the home work world or whatever it is. That said, culturally in Bible, that's not how it occurred in this culture, Hebrew culture, back in that time. And while I might joke about being in the kitchen or whatever like that, in all seriousness, it is a jest. Make sure you are clear on that with me. I like to give people a hard time. I will poke a needle at you a little bit, but in all reality, I have 100% 100% respect for women in whatever form and role they have in society. Okay, we all clear on that? I made a good baseline. Everybody knows if I tease you. What's that? Yeah. I just got to make sure, right? Because, I joke around, I'll poke people a little bit, but at the end of the day, I don't have any issue with anybody. We're all just bags of meat walking around this planet. We might as well treat each other well. Just a meat suit. Just wearing my meat suit. Might as well treat each other decently, right? I mean, what's the point otherwise? Okay, so Mark 15, verse 42. Let's do a quick backdrop on some of women's rights or lack thereof. Number one, women's rights. In Hebrew culture, you would not be allowed to have your testimony admissible into a courtroom setting. Something like that. Women's testimonies were not allowed. It just wasn't. You don't have to agree with it. It's just how it was. Number two, it was very rare and typically not common for women to own businesses or land. That was always done by father or husband, almost exclusively. There are a few exceptions to that here and there, but very uncommonly. Lydia is an example of that in Acts. Yeah. That's true. Number three, women are almost always directed or controlled effectively by father or husbands, right? One way or the other, you were basically subordinate to that person. And then they only would have inheritance if the family had no sons. Then they could inherit. Otherwise, it would almost always exclusively go to the male. Even if it were a daughter who was born first, it would still go to the first male-born son. And again, you don't have to like it. I'm just stating this is how it was. The reason we're going to bring that up is because we're going to talk about some of the women in the Bible that are used very, very powerfully, very boldly. And it's clear to me that Jesus and God has a view of women as different but equal, different but necessary, different but absolutely critical. That's why he made both. Both are necessary, both are useful. So let's go into Mark 15, chapter 42. And Mark chapter 15, verse 42. And if you, whoever you might be, would let me know your translation before we take off, we'll get going. Okay. NIV. Well, that's what I'm already on. We'll go ahead and get after it. Verse 42. Thank you.
It was preparation day. That is the day before the Sabbath. So it's evening of prep.
Wait a minute. What's the Sabbath?
Set apart for God.
It is set apart for God, but what is it?
Day of rest.
Day of rest. Day of rest set apart for God. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. How do we define the word holy? Jackie, can I pick on you for a second? What's your thought on the word holy? What do you think it means? No, don't worry about, this or that or whatever. It's kind of a trick, not trick question, but I'm just curious what everybody's take is on it. Because if you're anything like me and you've grown up, come out of her. Just kidding. If you're anything like me and you've grown up in and around the church, you get kind of comfortable with certain words and you think you have a handle on them. And then I go and I look up the definition and I go, wow, I've been assuming that word wrong the entire time. Or I've sort of leaned my definition over time to mean this thing, and that's not actually accurate. So if you don't mind me picking on you for a minute, you can absolutely tell me to zip it, Arnold, and say it in those words. Zip it, Arnold, and I won't pick on you. What is your thought on the word holy? How would you define it? If you're on a game show and they said define the word holy, what are you going to say? What's your thought? Totally put you on the spot, right? Yeah. Zip it, Arnold.
I'll give you $1.
What kind of images evoke to the mind with the word holy? I was thinking of things like maybe reverent.
Another one that's church words.
It's a tough one, right? Because we don't really define the words very well. A lot of times we just get used to it. And English is sort of a poor language in my opinion. We don't have a very good command of it. But the word holy, technically, if you have to put a technical definition around it, is set apart for God. That's what it means. Set apart for God. You are a holy people. You are set apart for God. Remember the Sabbath, the day of rest, and keep it holy. Keep the Sabbath set apart for God, right? The Sabbath is really for you, and we are to honor it and set it apart for God.
Follows his example.
What's that?
It follows his example.
Correct. God created for 6 days and rests on the seventh. No surprise, that's what he wants us to do. You can work 6 days a week if you want. I think you should work 5, maybe 4 if you can swing it. But if you want to work 6, you can, but rest 1 day. Do what is life-giving. That could mean going out and gardening, right? Gardening to some people, that's energizing, that's refreshing. That could be life-giving to you. That's what we're charged to do on this earth, in part. It's to rule and reign over the earth, to create order out of chaos. So there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody know what the high Sabbath is? Huh? Yeah, it's a taller Sabbath. Yeah, it's closer to Jesus. Are you Sabbathing? I'm high Sabbathing today. Do you know?
During the Passover or something?
What's that?
Yeah, that's what I was, Passover.
Bingo.
Special.
There are 7 annual biblical festivals that are called high Sabbaths. There are 2 Sabbaths that occur during Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, which is why the Friday crucifixion to Sunday morning resurrection doesn't actually fit the timeline. Jesus told us it would be 3 days and 3 nights. Well, if you can do math, Friday night to Sunday morning is not 3 days and 3 nights. So when we talk about that and we're like, well, wait a minute, Jesus said 3 days and 3 nights, and that's barely 2 days and 2 nights. The reason being is because there's a high Sabbath in there as well. That's Passover. And so the timeline starts to fit better when we recognize that. And we can go back and figure out exactly when that was. There's actually, anyway, that's getting off topic a little bit, but a lot of times people will have that particular contention with the Bible, say, oh, see, there's inaccuracy. Jesus said 3 days and 3 nights, and that's not right. The very beginning of this section is talking about, it was preparation day. That is the day before Sabbath. Okay. Does anybody even care about this? Am I just running off in the left field?
And signifying the high Sabbath.
That's the high Sabbath. Otherwise, the day before Sabbath, Sabbath was Saturday, and they measured days from evening to evening. That's kind of weird, right? But that's how they did it. At evening, it was the start of a new day. I'm guessing probably because you laid down and went to sleep, and that was kind of your charge for the next day. But it was evening to evening. Those are the days. So Sabbath would have been basically Friday night through Saturday to Saturday night, sundown to sundown. Okay. Go ahead, keep reading, Amber.
So as evening approached, Joseph of the council, who himself waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body.
Ooh, he's bold.
Pilate was
Spicy.
surprised to hear that he was already dead. Summoning the centurion, he asked him if Jesus had already died. When he learned from the centurion that it was so, he gave the body to Joseph. So Joseph brought some linen cloth, took down the body, wrapped it in the linen, and placed it in the tomb cut out of rock. Then he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid.
Okay. Now, the last verse there almost feels like it's kind of like, okay, and? Like Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, because they saw with their own eyes that he was dead and buried into a tomb. That's a witness account. That's the reason for bringing that up. Okay, let's go back.
Well, they're the same ones that did came back.
Don't get ahead of me.
Okay.
Get ahead of my notes.
Okay.
Do you want to pick one, or you want me to just randomize it? She was reading.
I know.
He's picking up.
Yeah.
I know you are. That's the problem.
Okay. Let's jump in. Joseph of Arimathea. So again, it's not his last name, it's where he's from, right? Because it says of. Mary, should be Mary of Magdalene, but Mary the Magdalene. Anyway, it becomes Mary Magdalene. Whatever. He's a member of what's council? The Sanhedrin, right? The high council within Jewish culture, within the Jewish community.
It's not my kid.
I'm waiting for the thwump, 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 you know. All right, so he goes to boldly to Pilate, and that's why would that be bold? Because
Well, because Pilate's in charge,
Pilate's a governor.
and going to the governor is not always the best idea for everybody. And if you do go before a higher authority,
You never know what they're gonna do. Who does the body belong to? Who does Jesus' body belong to right now? Pulled him off. He's on the cross currently. Who does his body belong to? Who technically has rights to it? Who said Romans? Who said state? Yeah. Romans and the state. Derek, you're getting one from the back. You ready? Coming at you. Oh, bullseye. Look at him grab it. Like a ninja. Technically, you bet. Technically, Jesus' body belongs to the state. It's pretty bold for Pilate to go, or for Joseph to go up to Pilate and be like, hey, I want to take that down and bury him. He's not even family. He's just part of the Jewish High Council. Jews and the Jewish High Council could not punish capital crimes. Rome did not give them an allowance. Remember, they're under oppression. Rome is in charge here, right? This subculture of Jews, they are within Rome under their control. They don't get to do just whatever they want. So this is pretty bold for Joseph to go do that. Strangely enough, though, it wasn't bold. He wasn't bold enough to like step up before when Jesus was being crucified, right before he was tried and crucified. Where are you then, Joseph?
Right?
Well, where was Peter? Where were the rest of the disciples?
That might be another reason it's bold, because, I mean, he's part of this council that originally went to Pilate and asked Jesus to be crucified, and now he wants to take care of the body.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little,
Like, what? Weren't you just over here like saying you wanted me to string him up? And now you're like, hey, can I take care of that body for you? Like, that's kind of weird. So anyway, now this is evening of preparation day, the day before Sabbath. Now, in order to not desecrate the Sabbath, you couldn't handle like somebody who had died and done all the funeral burial arrangements and all that. They have to hurriedly get this done because evening is coming and the day starts in the evening. It doesn't start the next morning, it starts that evening. It's just the culture of the time, it's how it works. Pilate's surprised. He's already dead. Wow. Wow, how's it? Usually that was a 2 or 3 day thing that somebody would be nailed on a cross, crucified, and would die over a period of a couple of days. Jesus was scourged and beaten so bad he only made it a few hours on the cross before he died. Pilate's surprised by that. In fact, he's so surprised, he has to go actually get confirmation from somebody. Who's he get confirmation from? Centurion. Wait a minute, we heard about a centurion just a few verses ago. Yeah, and what did he say when Jesus died? Surely this man was a son of God. That same centurion gets pulled up and says, Pilate says to him, well, you were there, you saw that. Can you confirm he's dead? And that centurion says, oh yeah, it was so. And so when he learned that, he gave the body to Joseph, and Joseph bought some linen cloth, took the body down, wrapped it in linen, placed it in the tomb, cut out of the rock. This, I don't know if you catch that. That was done very hurriedly. They had to hurry before nightfall set, and it became the Sabbath. Okay. Wrapped it in linen, placed it in, rolled the stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene, mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid, which also means they saw where the stone had been rolled over the face. Okay, that's going to become important in a minute. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this.
Now, whenever they say they rolled the stone,
Mhm.
there were like many people rolling the stone.
Oh yeah, this would have been the guards.
He rolled the stone. It doesn't
Right.
mention anybody else helping.
Yeah, this would be a very large stone. It's probably the way they would set this up, and this is a little bit of my cultural digging and finding it out, something like that. So to handle these big types of things, I mean, like you think about the pyramids, right? There was tons of labor involved, but there was also some intention. We think of the ancient world maybe sometimes as being a bunch of Neanderthals. They're a lot smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. In the case of this, there actually would have been use of gravity. Anybody here ever hear about gravity? You ever use that? So if you've got a mouth of a cave, kind of just like that, here's your stone, and you've got your mouth of your cave, it's maybe something sort of like that. This would be on just a slight bit of a hill, and so you'd put in like a stick or a lever arm on a fulcrum, and it would follow gravity and roll down into place. It was set that way. You know, obviously you're going to do that. If you're going to take the time to cut this thing out, you're going to use what you can to help you get it into place. That's why Joseph was able to do it sort of by himself. We're going to find out in a minute. Okay, we're going to do that. So point being is it's going to be a lot harder to open it than close it, right? Because of gravity. We all get that? It goes down a hill. Uphill is harder than downhill. Okay. Mark 16. Amber, you did great. Somebody else would jump in and read. We're going to jump into 16. Let me know your translation. Keep going. You do? Well, you're the best ever. Hold on a second. Let me jump in with you. Okay, Mark 16. Jesus is risen.
Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, alone, bought spices so they might go and anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, rise, they're on their way to the tomb, and they have
You catch that? What they're getting at? They don't expect Jesus to be risen. They don't expect it. Even though he's told them what's going to happen, even though he's been dead clear with how it's going to go down, they still are expecting the stone to be in front of the tomb. They are still figuring they got to open this thing up. They are probably still in mourning of the whole idea of Jesus being killed. Who's going to roll the stone away? They don't even have a plan, but they're just like, they know we got to take action.
Sometimes, I can relate to that, because sometimes I get so focused on the things that I'm supposed to do, like this is their ritual, right? That they forget that Jesus can do anything. You know what I mean? Like, we get so focused on what we're supposed to do, the protocols that we're supposed to have, and the rules that we're supposed to follow that we don't always think about.
That's exactly it. I talked about this a little while back. Where does your faith hit a wall? oh, Lord, you could never work in that person's life. Guilty, judgment, right? Because what did I do? I issued a verdict. I had a verdict about somebody. You know you're in judgment because you issue a verdict. That person could never get, who am I to say? Where does your faith hit a wall? Oh, Lord, if only we could just. Where does your faith, oh, I know Lord can do anything, and then all of a sudden you're like, you get to this part, and you've already created a mental barrier in your mind that God can't do that. God can't work with that person. God can't mend that relationship. God can't do this. God can't whatever. Wow, you're going to box the creator of the universe into this what you can do, and I've decided it? Like, no, that's a little arrogant for us to be doing that. But they get into a plan. They get into it without having a plan. Who's going to roll the stone away from this tube? They're all bombing over there. They got to get going. They got to figure it out. They got to get the spices on. That's actually used. Anybody know why they would put spices on? I know it says to anoint him, but there's a practical reason too. It's not embalming. It's not like Egyptian culture. That's different.
Cover the smell.
That's exactly right. Cover the smell. Just a practical, pragmatic thing, right? You trust me on one? I'll just pick it for you?
Okay.
Wait, you don't like raspberry, do you?
No, I'll just give it to her.
Okay, there you go. Even better. You can exchange it later.
You don't want it?
They brought spices so they might go anoint Jesus' body. Practical purpose. So he dies Friday afternoon, Friday night. They can't touch him all day Saturday because of the Sabbath. It's now the first day of the week, Sunday. Consequently, that's how we know Sunday's the first day of the week. That's why it's Sunday on a calendar, number one. Pretty cool, right? All right, cool. The Bible actually is supported by the Gregorian calendar.
I bought one that starts on Monday, it throws me off all the time.
Yeah, no, total failure. All right, let's keep going. Go ahead. Carrie, you were reading, weren't you? Keep going there. You're doing awesome.
But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed.
You were alarmed.
Don't be alarmed, he said. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you.
All right, who's the writer of this book? Mark. John Mark. His full name is John Mark. That's what he was known as, but Mark is what we call him here. So Mark is the writer. Where's he getting the majority of his information from? Peter. Peter's the man. He's recounting his eyewitness account. Mark is writing it down. Mark's the scribe. Cool. Verse 7, but go tell his disciples and Peter. Wasn't Peter already a disciple? Why does Peter get the call out? Go tell his disciples and Peter?
Yeah, mine says including Peter, so.
Because it's, they're telling, Jesus is, they're making a point to say that Peter, even though you denied me, it doesn't matter, I still love you and you're still my disciple.
He's seeking out restoration. He's saying, Peter, you denied me. Peter, you failed when the moment came. Because they were in the Garden of Gethsemane. What did Jesus tell them? Watch and pray so that you won't fall into temptation. That's the answer. You got temptation in your life? Watch and pray. Watch and pray about it. Be mindful. Have your eyes open and pray about it. Peter doesn't. He falls asleep in Gethsemane. He doesn't stay up with the Lord praying. He doesn't put on his spiritual armor. And as a result, when the trials came, he failed. And Jesus still reaches out to him and says, Peter, I still want a relationship with you. Specifically calls him out. That doesn't help you feel better about where we land sometimes, right? Where have I got failed relationships that I need to reach out and try to restore where it's within my power? Anybody know why the angels always show up as young men? Ever wonder that? They always seem to show up as young men most of the time. They never say they're old. They never say man. It always seems to commonly say young man. Not in every single time, but commonly.
Well, and the idea is that when you go to heaven, you basically are, you shed the old meat suit and you have whatever divine suit that God gives you.
Your glorified body, all that. Yeah, because it's, if we always get this idea like heaven's our destination, that's not it. That's not your destination. That's a stop along the way. The destination is the new heavens and the new earth, or the renewed heaven and the renewed earth. We can get into all that later on. For anybody who's curious, hit me up later. But for this purpose, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe, and they were alarmed. It's like Angel 101. If you ever become like an angel, God creates an angel, it's like, okay, we got to go to Angel 101 class. First thing I want you to do anytime you run into humans is say, don't be afraid, because they're going to freak out every time. It's like, I always say that, right? Like when the angel came to Mary and told her she was going to give me, he's like, don't be afraid, like Angel 101. Hey, don't be afraid. What does he say? Don't be alarmed. So angels are, interestingly enough, something that may alarm you if you ever see one. That's kind of wild. But at the same time, they can also, we'll get into that later. All right. Young man. Why is he a young man? Because young men, generally, no offense, are not imposing and threatening. If angels are already something that,
Threatening.
if angels are already,
Errand boys and things like that, they've
Yeah.
been sent with a message or to do the work of the master, right?
if they're already alarming to us potentially, showing up as a young man is probably going to be less alarming than you come some old battle-hardened, grizzled veteran with a big old scar down his eye, half a wing missing. You're like, yeah, Don't be alarmed. You're like, I'm alarmed. You're looking like you're going to take me out.
So a young man in this is a young teenager even?
That's the wording is used
Young
that way.
man, he's in his 20s. I mean, I think that's probably wrong culturally.
Well, yeah. Think about the lifespan. Average lifespan in the middle in this time, 39. 39 to 41 is the estimate. You didn't live very long because we didn't have modern medicine. You got an infection, man, that might take you out. You get a bad cut, you get an infection, you're done. There's no antibiotics. That's not happening. So, yeah, probably, maybe even translated boy. Something in and around Sam's age. It's going to be way less. Anyway, all right. You get the idea, right? Okay. Good question.
Waiting for whoever showed up.
Well, but keep in mind, there are the 2 Roman guards there, because the stone was
Mark
sealed.
doesn't care about those.
Yeah, Mark doesn't bring those up.
Predestined for them to see the angel.
Oh, that'll boil your noodle. How much free will do we have and how much are we predestined by God's order? Ooh, I don't know.
Well, I think tremendously, considering the prophecy of Jesus being killed and resurrecting, and nobody's there to stop it. That was God's will for that to happen, so nobody was supposed to stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like we talked about last week. Does Judas get a free pass because he was helping fulfill Scripture? No, you don't get a free pass. God would have used somebody else if he didn't.
I have a question. What's your women's lack of rights, number 1? Testimony not?
Admissible in court. Who's the first people who are going to be the eyewitness accounts of what Jesus has done with his resurrection? Women. You don't start a euangelion, a gospel message, on the testimony of women in this time, in this culture. And yet here Jesus is using these women.
But maybe that's just a purpose.
That's exactly why. That's exactly what he's up to. That's exactly what God's up to. It doesn't go with men's logic. Not men as in the male, but as in mankind, mankind's logic. God uses who he chooses to use. Mary Magdalene was arguably one of the most transformed people in the Bible. She comes from a background of prostitution and all kinds of brokenness that goes along with that. And she becomes one of the hinge pin people on which the gospel message is then recounted and shared out. That's pretty cool, man. I mean, if that doesn't give you some goosebumps to say that God can use any one of us and all of our brokenness and all of our failures and the things that we haven't met the mark on, that's pretty, oh, I'm talking too much. Would you please read? You are the best ever. Shut up, Arnold. Zip it. Zip it, Arnold. Keep going. Don't be alarmed. I am alarmed.
Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid.
So, okay, trembling and bewildered and afraid. Boy, they are all kinds of messed up, but they still keep getting after what they need to be doing, going on to Galilee. So, okay. This is an awkward section of Scripture based on how it's been laid out in the teaching guide that we're jumping back into this after Easter being a few weeks back. But there's foundation and ground underneath it that I want to camp on for a minute, and it has to do with my object lesson. So if you guys think about me, I like doing woodworking, right? I do little woodworking projects. I make spoons, I make little birds. It's a little bird that I made for a lady. All kind of stuff like that. This is a spoon that I made. I made this, and it's Jessica's spoon, actually. I made it, gave it to her, because she likes to stir the pot a little bit. It's just awesome. Love that. This is a spoon, and it started out blank. I made the spoon from. An old blank, this is off of a piece of just oak board that was probably going to be used for flooring. This is basically scrap. It's not good for anything, right? It's too short. It's too short to do anything with. I know. Just pretend. There's nothing you can do with this. Not really useful. But there's something inside here. There's a spoon inside here. But again, what I do, what my first step is? Not drawing it out. Because how do you breaking it down into a rough shape with an axe? That's a pretty violent thing for the wood to experience. It's very hard. It's very aggressive. It's taking big cuts out of it. I'm swinging it with some pretty heavy hits. It's oak. It's not easy to cut. It's not pine. It's oak. It's hardwood. You can't crease it with your fingernail. It's hard and it's tough. And to get through it, I got to use an axe. Anybody starting to get the foundation of what I'm setting here? If you're going to be in community with God, He's going to shape you. And the further off you are from where you're supposed to be, the harder that correction is going to feel. And then when I get down to the root of it, I start pulling out the bowl with this tool. This is called a hook knife. And I use this, and I get my arm nice and stiff against it, and I work it like that, being very careful not to cut myself. And this is the greatest strength I have in my arm to do that. And I hook out all of the bowl of the spoon. And that's hard for that wood. It doesn't like it. It resists me. And I'm cutting it the whole way, but I'm doing it with more precision. And then as I get to the end of the spoon, I use my little woodling knife. Super sharp, razor sharp. And I can catch the tiniest little bits of that wood and get the shape exactly the way I want it. And as I get toward the finished part of the spoon, I'm cutting less and less and less until I'm cutting so little it's basically just like dust coming off. That's what we can expect if you want God to find you where you're at and get you in your purpose. This has a purpose. I'm going to make it have a purpose. Right now it's nothing. It's scrap. But I'm going to make it have a purpose, and I'm going to find the spoon inside of this. There's a spoon inside all of us, or whatever your purpose is, right? You got to find that purpose. You got to figure out what that purpose is. And if you don't know, you can pray for it, and I guarantee you'll get an answer. If you're willing to be used, if you're willing for God to come into your life and to work you and to move you into what you are to be, I guarantee you He will answer that prayer every single time. Pray it with earnestness, pray it with patience, and be open to whatever the answer is, even if you don't like it. Because there's a spoon in here. But initially, it's going to be hard because I'm going to have to take an axe to get after it. I can't get from here to here with just this tiny little thing. So sometimes there's going to be a season, I think, of us getting, you know how the Bible talks about iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens another, right? This is iron, and I take an iron file, and I can knock down the rough edges and get it back to a useful tool. And when the enemy wants to try to get after you, he's going to send people in your life. So we need to have a spirit of discernment to understand that I'm in good community with somebody. I can trust their input because they've proven to be trustworthy. I don't just take random strangers like it's so-and-so said this, so I must do that. Not necessarily. Think about that. But with that said, then consider, I think we're in a season of time where there's going to be some spoon shaping going on. Okay, that was me talking a lot about that. Practical application. Making spoons. Anybody want to make some spoons? They're useful. Here's your spoon back. Thank you.
Never used it.
I like it.
That's all right. That's why carries hers in her purse.
Or so he thinks.
Uh,
I like it. I particularly like this one because of the handle.
Yeah, I remember
It fills the palm.
you mentioned that because I know that you said your hands sometimes
You can
hurt,
sometimes,
so-
if I'm stirring something for a long time, having that little thin, you know, it
Kinda
kinda
digs
grips
in.
your hand, but this is gives me a firm grip.
Yeah, that's what Nathan said about you stirring.
Whack 'em a little harder.
Hey, I don't need another pot stirrer in my life.
Yeah, that's right. That's enough of you, pal. I love stirring the pot a little bit. I think it's good. I think it's good that we don't fall into just dogmatic agreement. You know, like we all show up here and we all just pat each other's ego and say, good job for you, and we're all Christians and we love our neighbor, and then, okay, see you later. If I'm not challenging you guys at least a little bit, then I probably shouldn't be up here. I'm not going to always say everything you like to hear. And a lot of it, I'm not liking to have to say it because I know that that piece of wood that's thick and dense and stupid is me. With all that said, what's the practical application? What are we going to do with this? I know it's kind of a weird connection of talking about this and talking about Jesus' resurrection, but as he comes out of the grave and And as he looks to restore relationship with Peter specifically, there might be relationship in here that needs to be restored with him. Maybe it's the first time you've thought about that. I haven't thought about that recently. I've been praying very soft and tepid prayers. I haven't had fervor. Where's the energy? Where's the heart? You know, I'm a fireball. Where's that heart lately? Just, oh Lord, if you take care of that and watch over my friends and prosperity. Jesus is like, are you even alive? Where's the fire? Pray the Psalms. Look at David. That man was on fire. It's real with the Lord. Told him when he was upset. God, I'm angry. As if like you could hide it from him, like he doesn't know. Like, well, Lord, I'm kind of mad, Like, no, he knows. He has a heart of anger. I have a heart of upset. I'm irritated about something. So-and-so's not doing what they ought to be doing. I'm going to go get my axe and I'm going to start shaving them down, You're like, well, hold on, pal. Maybe you should, careful there. So it comes to the point of like we are to sharpen one another and we can rebuke one another, right? We can do that. I can rebuke you. But I can do it with firmness and with kindness. Those two agree together. You can do that at the same time. So correcting our children, firm and kind can both occur. Sometimes there needs to be a paddling of the bottom, right? But a lot of times as the kids transition out, now we're talking and coaching more. We're not doing as much of the paddling of the bottom. Right? Resonating, As when my kids...
Amen.
What's that?
The intention behind it. Is it correction or is it discipline?
Define the difference between the two. Define each directly. Yes. Correction, direction, and discipline. Define the three.
It can be discipline at the same time. I don't know. Punishment. I'm sorry, not discipline.
So
Punishment.
admonishment, yeah.
Yeah. Am I just whacking you to whack you, or is there a purpose for me to do this to teach you something?
Did you just trigger an anger response in me and I just can't control it? One of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. We should have self-control. I'm not saying be perfect, I'm not expecting that, but I'm saying we should be working on our self-control. Do you have impulse control issues, anger issues like that? And then we need to be working on that. That's part of the shaving that away to create that spoon. We got to shave away those impulse responses and have a spirit of self-control, not a spirit of angry. I resonate with that very quickly. I'm very quick to get angry over stuff. I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older. I've gotten a lot better. But, at work, it was like, you should just get this. Why don't you get this? You've been through the training. You've seen the curriculum. You took the test. You passed it. Why aren't you still getting it? And I want to just whack them, I'm like, oh, that's the overflow right here. That's what that is. That's the overflow of the heart. That means that's inside me. If I see myself doing that, if I'm prone to that, that means that's what's in here. Ooh, I need that. I need to cut that away there. That's not good. It's like cutting out cancer. If I ever have cancer and they want to cut it out, I'm like, cut a little extra. Make sure you get it all, and cut out a little bit of that hate there. Where's that anger coming from? It's expectation. My life isn't going right. How dare this happen to me? As if I'm so special that everything has to go my way, right? Or be my way. So that's the practical application, is start to think about what it is. If you're going to be in community with God, plan on Him sharpening you. Plan on Him cutting out some of the stuff that doesn't need to be there. It's not always going to be comfortable. But we've got to be willing to take that on to grow into what we're supposed to grow into. Otherwise, it's just the same old thing. And if we're coming here every Sunday just patting ourselves on the back or just playing nice or whatever you want to call it, then we're not really being very real. I'm not sure why I'm hanging on this so much. I'm sorry.
Progress, not perfection.
That's exactly it. It's progress, not perfection. I mean, even Peter was the rock of the church. He denied him 3 times. 3 times. And Jesus still, the very next day, reaches out to him. A day or 2 later, says, bring Peter. He's still part of this.
I mean, even after he denied him the 3rd time, Jesus looked straight at him and says he loved him.
Mm-hmm.
Even though. That's awesome.
Can you imagine what it feels like to be loved by Jesus? Like in physical form, presence, like you could see him? Like I think theoretically time travel backward is impossible. Forward, I think it's possible, but backward it's not. But there's something cool to be like, I'd love to go back in time and see Jesus and be like, oh, that's him. I've been reading about him. I know what you're up to. I won't spoil it. Spoiler alert. He comes back. All right. Yeah, let's pray, and then we'll get out of here even just a tiny bit early this time. Wow, I'm actually ahead of time. What do you know about that? Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, you all put up with me, and I appreciate that. I brought donuts today in case anybody wants some. Any questions, comments, takeaways, inputs on this? I'm not trying to convict everybody here and be like, you're all bad. It's not the point, right? It's not like come in here and come to life group and get hammered on. It's just to say that, yeah, we need to be refining ourselves. I need to be refining myself as a husband to my wife. I need to be refining myself as a father to my kids, even though they're in their 20s now and it's more of a coaching role. But I still need to be that coach. I need to give them the play. I need to let them go out on the field and play. And then when they come back, I need to help refine and cut away the excess that's not there. It's just like that. It's just like being a coach. I'm coaching the kids into greatest plays they can make. And when they make that touchdown or they make that field goal, that's success as a parent, to me. Let's pray. Would somebody else out of here today? I think, Carl, I picked on you last time, so I'm going to let you go without it. Eric, are you comfortable with that? No? No worries. Nathan, thank you.
Father God, we come before you and say thank you for this message and the opportunity to hear from your words from Rob. But we ask that what we've understood here, that we would take away and apply to our lives this next week and even further. Lord, as we leave here, I ask that you be with the other teachers as well as Pastor Keith. Help us understand what it is that you have us here. We thank you and love you and say these things you do. Amen.
Amen. And thanks, everybody, for coming out when I brought knives and hatchets to class. Anybody want a chocolate? You can have one. No, it's not a trophy for showing up. It's a trophy. You endured. Good job. Oh, yeah, check this out. Look at that. That's what happens when your wife decides she wants to get organized. It starts with the refrigerator. Nice.
I have a refrigerator that could use some help.
I know.
Don't even start.
Worst decision ever.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember that.
Anybody need a refrigerator? Did we figure out if that family needs it or not?
It's in my parents' shed this morning.
Okay.
A little bit late.
No worries.
So I'll talk to them and let you know by hopefully right after second service.
Just sitting on the carport. Just message me, let me know. It's not a gigantic one, so it's not like a monster to have to move, so it's pretty easy to move. But it's a good